Okay.
good now, yeah.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that the City of La Marque, Texas, and the La Marque Professional Firefighters Local 3282 will conduct a meeting on May 20th, 2025, beginning at 11 a.m. in council chambers at 1109 B Bayou Road, La Marque, Texas. In accordance with Section 551.127B of the Texas Local Government Code, the presiding officer and the quorum of negotiating teams intend to be and will be physically present at 1109 B Bayou Road, La Marque, Texas. This location will be open to the public, and the meeting will be broadcast at this location on Channel 16 and via YouTube. The representatives meet for the purpose of considering the following agenda. Calling the meeting to order for representatives of Local 3282, if you will please state your name and where you fall for your organization.
President Cody Chandler.
Vice President Isaiah Reyes.
Duping member Jody Martinez.
Representing City, Fire Chief David Merriman.
And JB Pritchett, City of La Marque City Manager. And Mayor, if you will give us your full name and where you are at. Well, Mayor, we will get you if you come back on. At this time, I will say our invocation.
JB.
Yes, sir, there you are.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all didn't hear me?
No, sir.
Okay. Mayor Keith Bell, City of La Marque, 1915 Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I will say our invocation. I will ask Mr. Chandler if you will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, please. If you will stand. Dear gracious and heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for today. I thank you for this time of service as we continue to better our community and to fight for those who fight for us on a daily basis. Our local heroes, those that represent the City of La Marque's public safety from the fire division. Father God, I pray that this be a time of unity, a time of great discussion and understanding for the betterment of our community and our residents alike. And these things I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we move to citizens' participation. Comments from the public will be heard at this time. Any persons with city-related business who has signed up to speak may speak, limited to 3 minutes. If wishing to speak, please give the mayor or presiding officer your full legal name and the item to which you wish to speak about. In compliance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, the city may not deliberate on comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed, and personnel matters should be addressed to the city manager during normal business hours. Press *6 to mute or unmute if you're participating by telephone. Press the unmute button if you're attending via Zoom or on a smartphone, tablet, or computer, or stand if the attending person and mayor will call on you of your turn if you're present. Megan, do we have any people online wishing to speak at this time? All right, hearing so, we will move to any person here present wishing to speak at this time. Hearing none, we will move on. Item 5, new business. Items presented for discussion and possible action. Item 5.1, negotiating economic and non-economic terms of fire collective bargaining agreement. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're here. We are here. First and foremost, I wanted to reiterate a little bit of where we are at in the course of the events when it comes to the collective bargaining agreement of the local fire union 3282. Just for the general public, we had our kickoff meeting that really outlaid our ground rules. The local 3282 had done their due diligence and were extremely prepared at that time and had submitted their negotiation packet, including there were 4 supplemental packets that break down their ask as we currently set. So given that time that would typically be done on our first meeting, had expressed to them my thorough thanks for the City of La Marque, just for all of us to kind of be on top of that, for anyone who is listening now or in the future on playback. But it has given us ample time to already start doing this, because as we said in the ground rules, our commitment to each other on both sides is that we would do this in a timely manner. We know that there has been certain things or certain years in the past, even the pandemic years, that were a bit meticulous when it came to these types of things. And so I wanted to reiterate that commitment from the City of La Marque with that. And I thank y'all for honoring that commitment by being prepared in that ground rule meeting. One of the things that we talked about at length last time were the packet asks that you had. In summation, that was found to be upping your certification pay. Pardon me. Upping your certification pay, as well as some additional increases, as well as they ask about boot allowance, residency pay, all of the items outlaid in those items. I wanted to also reiterate the items that we spoke about as it was as a whole. We talked about vacation and how that is allotted for your members and the representatives of the La Marque Fire Department. And that was very eye-opening. And so when it comes to all of this, to the general public, when it comes to this, because y'all frankly are serving on Christmas Day, you're serving on New Year's Eve, because if there's an emergency at 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock when it strikes New Year, your people respond. And so I think that was very informative and eye-opening for folks that may just see vacations or see holidays as something for everybody, but y'all very clearly outlaid how you even handle that from an operations standpoint, and I think that was informative, to say the least. One of the other things that we talked about were the aspects of minimum staffing. We know that we've had some history when it comes to minimum staffing. I think that this union, as well as the La Marque Fire Department, did a great job in the few years of past that I have even been at the City of La Marque, to educate the general public on what a one-man engine is and what that means for y'all when it comes to operations, when it comes to maintaining a level of service and showing up on scene to our residents with one person when multiple a lot of times are needed, if not all the time are needed. And so the City of La Marque, in personnel in the last negotiations, we talked about this idea of minimum staffing. And so just to reiterate what that means to run 2 full shifts, 2 full stations per shifts that you're running, the 3 shifts that you run, obviously those aspects of the job. I just want to reiterate that again to the public that we're watching, because these asks that are part of your booklet that you gave the City of La Marque from the union, I want to kind of talk about the history there and why they are there, so that when we look at positions, when we look at increases, when we look at those things, it's putting and creating the narrative behind it, if that makes sense. The things that I have written up on the certification pay specifically were the hazmat tech that we had talked about, the officer pay grades that you had put in there, officer 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as the benefits that these certifications bring to the public. And I thank y'all for sharing that, because when we live in a region like we do, the fire department is part of our emergency management. When you live in a city like we do, we have hazmats, we have all of these different aspects. And so I get the explanation that y'all had last time in kind of sharing with the general public and myself a sneak peek into your daily jobs of what this means when you're on a truck or when you're on a medic unit and you're responding to calls for a spill or a car accident or a gas leak or any of those aspects. And so I'd just like to reiterate that. The other thing that really was a big topic of conversation was the idea of a schedule change, the 4896. I know we spent some time on that. Mayor spoke on that a little bit with his background in the fire service as well. And, you know, everyone seems to be very adamant on that schedule change. Some of the things that I have for today, and again, to just remind everybody, us being ahead of the curve with getting this ahead of time, that kind of speeds up our process. And so today, really where I was wanting to be at is obviously an organic conversation when it comes to this, but a few more finer details when it comes to these things, some of which I think I know, but I try not to assume because, well, we all know what that does. And so with that schedule change, one of the items that we talked about was that your thoughts of the alleviation of overtime, sick time, and vacation. Now, I have read through what you included, which was the 4896 feasibility report. Please let Mr. McNeil, I don't know if he did this on his own accord, if he did this for multiple things, but it was very well put together, and I think that is an asset for y'all as a union to share aspects like this. It's much more understanding for us when we can put things like that on paper and articulate what you see each and every day, and then report it up to, you know, the commanding officers, either at the union, the fire department, or even at the city, how we can make these decisions. I wanted to talk a little bit, again, having read the report, but to just kind of, again, let it be organic, wanted to hear the union's stance on this 4896 program. Obviously, you had made a few points, one of which was being able to recruit from further out, being able to recruit better people of service for the fire department, and so on and so forth. We were a bit just kind of high level last time, and having now read the report, I'd really like to hear from y'all and just articulate some of that.
So, switching to 4896 would benefit in many different ways, even to truck maintenance. You know, every morning when we come in, we run all the saws, all the tools, basically putting hours on all of our tools, because when you come in, you can't assume that that truck is fully checked off. So it's not that we don't trust the other shifts, it's that we don't know it's okay until we put our hands on it. So with a 4896, tools, small hand tools, everything would only be getting started the first day on, because you're on for the 2 days. Benefits to it as well is, which is huge, is currently we work pretty much almost every single weekend. Either if it's a Friday, Sunday, or Saturday, no matter what, we're always working weekends. And with this schedule change would give us a little bit of breather and give us some time with our families, with our kids and wives. I think it multiplies or triples the weekends that we work. Also, I think it would help with the overtime because of the Kelly days, which Kelly days, fortunately, I think it's a nightmare. Would y'all agree? It's a nightmare, and would definitely help with that.
Can you elaborate on that, just a tad?
So basically, every 27 days we have to take a Kelly day, which a lot of times means that after 7 p.m. there's a slot open. So it's kind of a nightmare because we can't mandatory somebody last minute. You know, if they get off at 7 in the morning, I can't call them and be like, hey, you're getting off a shift, but you only can go home for 12 hours because you got to come back in at 7 p.m. Once they're off, they're off. I can't mandate them. So it becomes kind of a nightmare as far as staffing wise, which, in my opinion, the city would benefit because right now they're giving us, I think, 12 hours for, you know, just to take off, but we're willing to give that back so that way we could get this better schedule. Honestly, it would help us with our everyday work basis. You know, we're here for 2 days straight, so there's a lot of times we're working on a 24 and then we're in the middle of something and we can't complete it, obviously, for running calls and stuff like that. That second day, it gives us time to complete those tasks. To where right now, you know, you work 24 and we only have limited business hours, right, that the city's open. So sometimes we run so much that we can't complete those tasks, so we got to wait till the next time we're on shift to complete those obstacles.
Are those tasks per shift?
So it
that
depends.
you're speaking of
yes,
right
sir.
there, those are per shift staff,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So it'll help with that, and pretty much I think morale as well. For biggest thing is just having more weekends off, and we have some people that are driving, commuting here 45, 50 minutes away, and they're doing that 3 times a week. So you think about that, that's at least 6 hours of travel time per week for them, to where this one would limit that wear and tear on their vehicles, and yeah. You got anything?
One of the things I'll add too is this schedule is now becoming the industry normal. A lot of departments are going to this schedule because of the benefits that it provides. One, it's more time with your family. It's less vehicle maintenance on your personal vehicle. So you're coming here for you drive in one day, you're here for 2 days, then you go home for 4. So that's less gas you're spending, that's less oil changes, that's less mileage. 3, you're able to reach a broader candidacy pool, where there's some people who, like myself, I live 45 minutes away. We've had other people who live an hour, 2 hours away, that have left our department because of the commute time. So it's going to, 1, bring in a wider applicants. 2, it's going to have better retention for people that live further away. And then, like Reyes was saying, it cuts down on your small tool maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
You're not running your small tools every single day. You come in your first day, you check them off, they run good. Your second day, you don't, because you've already put your hands on them, you don't have to run them as much. Whereas right now, we come in, yesterday was my first day, everything got checked off. When I come back tomorrow, everything again is going to get checked off and ran. When I come back my third day, again, everything's going to get checked off and ran. So it cuts down on your small tool maintenance to where you're not running them as much, you're not putting the hours on them. And so that money that we're spending will, in the long run, cut down.
So also the chances of catching a late call for overtime. So a lot of times you'll catch a call at 6:30 in the morning, and your relief ain't here yet. So I guess that medic unit or that engine has to take that call, obviously, right? We're not going to report to a call. So that can happen 3 times a week, to where on a 4896, it only can happen 1 time, because you're getting off, and that's that 1 time that you can catch that late call. To where right now, every single time we're getting off, you can catch that late call, and that's two hours overtime, depending on the call. I mean, it could even go up to 4 or 6 hours, depending on the call of overtime, right? So that's another way.
Do we have the reportings for how much of that chews up overtime at that regard for late calls?
That would be something we could pull up, but I don't have that on top of it.
Not at this present moment, but something for us to look at, because all of those are deciding factors. And I know that it outlined in here in the 4896 feasibility report, and it did talk about that. I just want to know if from an administration standpoint we'll be able to look at that. So,
Yes, sir.
because obviously a lot of things make up that overtime.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so we want to, if we can kind of fine tune what that amount would be.
And our tours are so long. So you work one day, you're off one day, you work one day, you're off one day, you work one day, and then you're off 4 days. To work 2 days and you're done. The schedule we're on right now, you come in, get tore up, 2 shifts in a row, and then you got babies at home and kids and all that. You're really not catching a break
Sure.
until after the 3 long shifts, and then you get your 4 days off.
Sure.
So that I think that's why a lot of times you see more people wanting vacation time and using stuff up because of such the long change,
Yeah.
the long tour.
Well,
Yeah.
and
And JB,
yes, sir.
I will say that from my perspective, this is a economic issue. If the union, and I don't know where the fire chief falls on this, but if the union can show us where this is gonna be economically beneficial to the people of La Marque, if they can show us where it's gonna cut down on overtime and cut down on our labor costs, I think that would be, was something that I would be interested in seeing as we move forward, because that would be, for me, from our perspective, the determining factor on how we proceed with this proposal.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And so when we look at those reportings from administration, because again, that was a good chunk of the feasibility report. It talked about all those aspects, what I call what the mayor referred to as economic benefits, but also the non-economic benefits, the aspect of, right, I get to go to kids' t-ball games.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't want and I think this as a whole, right, the whole aspect of us looking at this as a city as a whole is, yes, we are growing, but we know together. And so there should be times, efforts, and energies put into making sure that our own people are maintaining a quality of life, right? I'm the first to tell you, right, this stuff doesn't stop. I get that.
Yes, sir.
And so we want to understand both aspects of it. But yes, a big part of that is if we can gather some of those reports. I've run some preliminary reports with finance already in regards to some of this stuff. We aren't necessarily going to get into that all today, but these are the aspects that I look through when we talk about these asks as well, because what we're needing to do is obviously be able to articulate this to the taxpayer, to council, to everybody on what the basis is of where cost savings would be, or where we need to reallocate resources and monies with that. Because if it does save a substantial amount of money in overtime, then we can look at expanding equipment. We can look at all these other additional items, right? And I know that one of the other asks that you talked about was with uniforms. And so we want to make sure that obviously we cover all those bases. But if there is, like the mayor's point, if we can look at, run the reports and figure out where we can have cost savings when it comes to overtime, because I know certain things make that up when we do events, when we have, running other shifts or things like that.
Yeah.
But if we can fine tune it to where we're catching these late calls and things like that, I think it will better help us articulate the economic impact that we could save with switching. When y'all catch those late calls and you're there 4 hours late, and then you didn't make it home to sleep or cook breakfast or whatever the case is. But
Yes, sir.
if we're going to articulate that as a whole, right, there's always the dollar amount that's attached to it, and that's all I was getting at with that.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Chief.
I think we can do the same financial study on the Kelly Day.
Okay, that would help.
So
Yeah.
some historical knowledge about our Kelly Day is when the Kelly Day was first negotiated, there were 9 people on shift. And the Kelly Day is on a 27-day cycle. So on that 27-day cycle, somebody had to take off a shift. When you have 9 people on shift and you only have 9 shifts a month, only one person was having to take a Kelly Day on a half day or not. I'm sorry, not 9. We only had 6 people on shift when we went to the Kelly Days.
Okay.
And now we're up around 10, fixing to hire the 11th. So now you've got to add an additional Kelly Day, which decreases the minimum staffing. It doesn't decrease minimum staffing because we won't go below 2, but it decreases the number of people who can be off on holiday or vacation time. And a lot of times if somebody calls off sick, there are a lot of times where we've allowed, since that person was already here, to work their Kelly Day for overtime to keep us at minimum staffing. There's quite a few instances. We can pull a report and show how many times, because we had to give them the Kelly Day, that it actually increased our overtime because of minimum staffing.
Some of that may be in some of these preliminary financial reports,
But I think with our scheduling program, we can isolate it down to an exact number of,
that would be helpful.
because that report probably only shows overtime. It's not really broke out, but on our scheduling program, we can isolate out the total number of hours that were paid overtime because somebody had to work their Kelly day to keep us at minimum
Sure.
staffing.
Sure.
So I'll add this to the Kelly Day. I have not taken a Kelly Day off in over 3 years. So every month for 3 years, y'all have paid me a minimum of 12 hours overtime.
And is that because operationally you could not,
Yes,
and it's just easier for you to be on?
yes.
And right now, so after you get past the 9th person, once you go to 10th, it's really like we don't, like, you have 2 people on Kelly Day on one day. So
Every day, or how often does
So
that
that
happen?
happens
I know it's
once a
20
month.
Once
a month.
Once a month.
And then once the 11th person comes in, that is going to mean
2 days a month.
2 days a month. One person has to take off the first half, and then the other person takes off the back half. So in reality,
Sure.
it's like we're losing one person just on Kelly days,
Yeah.
to where that in itself would limit overtime like crazy because we're not losing those people.
Sure.
So
12 hours a month, but you pay overtime 24 to 3 years. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat with him.
Yeah, I didn't figure you were the exception to the rule. I figured that was probably more of the rule. And I've even said
And
that.
there's a lot of our firefighters, or even our standard fire line guys do the same thing. Just because they're scheduled to go home on Kelly Day, and somebody either calls in sick, or if they go home, then we're going to have to call in overtime to work the shift, and then somebody's going to drive in for 12 hours and then turn around and drive home. They're already here. A lot of times those guys will, to decrease the wear and tear on their personal vehicles from making an extra trip.
If you called somebody in to cover that 12 hours and they would have to turn around and go home, they would be on overtime as well, wouldn't they?
They would be.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a wash.
Sure. I just mean, like, I get that. Like the
Yeah, if we called
courtesy
somebody in, it would still be calling
of
a,
Reyes, I'm already here.
Yeah.
I got it. That
Yeah.
way you don't have to drive in. I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that if you did have to call Reyes in
well,
to
no,
cover that,
the
he would be
caveat
on
to that
overtime.
is if we don't let our captains
Mm-hmm.
take the Kelly Day spot for somebody who's a firefighter.
Sure.
And vice versa.
Sure.
Like if the captain's on Kelly Day and we've got to call a captain or to minimum staff, if we don't have somebody that can step up into that role, then we have to call a captain in for overtime. We allow the captain to go ahead and work his Kelly Day for overtime.
Okay.
Same with firemen, but we don't hire a captain to work as a firefighter.
Sure. Cost me more.
A lot more.
Well, was there anything else y'all wanted to elaborate on Kelly Day, or I think the 4896 feasibility report, like I said, really brings us again more to reiterate that we're ahead of the curve with y'all having a lot of this stuff prepared. So it obviously gives us an amount of
I will add,
Yeah.
if we do switch to the 4896, that means the Kelly Days go away.
that's what I got from
Yes. So-
Mr. Reyes.
So
Yeah.
there's one portion right there of the overtime being cut.
Sure.
It's because we're no longer having to have someone either come in or stay and work on a Kelly Day. So that right there goes away.
Perfect. Thank you for making that clarification. I wanted to talk about the, obviously we talked last time when it came to certification pay, and really what that was is a reward for those that go out and to better themselves and continue education for their job and their duties and things like that. There were a few on there that I saw that I had questions about when it comes to I made notes on it before. I guess on page 7, I'm looking on packet 1. It says that it can be found on page 7. What it is the 2 hours overtime for investigators that are on call over the weekend. Talk to me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
So right now, if you're on call, basically that weekend.
Actually, do you mind if I read this first? I
Absolutely.
apologize, just for the public. Overtime for on-call fire investigator. Whenever one of our firefighters is scheduled on call during a weekend, they are limited to what they are available to do. While on call, the investigator duty is to be available at any hour and must be able to report to a fire scene within the city at a reasonable time frame. To accomplish this, the investigator may not travel out of town, consume alcohol, or perform any off-duty activities that would otherwise cause a delayed response time. We are requesting 2 hours of overtime pay for any on-call investigator assigned over a weekend, regardless of whether they respond to an incident. This seems reasonable accommodation for any loss in family time, vacation plans, or out-of-town event that they may have to rearrange their yearly schedule.
So typically, a lot of fire departments, police departments, if you're on call for that weekend, they usually reimburse you, like it says, you can't go out of town, you can't go, an hour and a half away, 2 hours if you got family up in, Cleveland, Magnolia, because you got to be able to report at a reasonable time.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's basically somewhat of a reward for them for being on call for that weekend, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Compensation, not reward.
Compensation. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chief.
And it's not, it's not one of our firefighters. There's only a select few of them that would qualify as arson investigators
Now,
at this
is that
particular moment.
the basic arson, or is that the,
It is the basic arson.
okay, just wanted to make sure.
So a lot of our shifts have a cause and origin who can take a look, and if they need an arson investigator to come out and take a look, that's what those guys are on call for.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, right now, we have 6.
Okay.
Well, 5 because I'm not taking call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just counted the number.
I
I
will-
didn't realize one of them was you, Chief.
I will come out if I'm asked, but I'm
So with that, the idea is each one of them is on call each weekend.
They
Would rotate.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm
rotate,
sorry.
yeah.
They would obviously rotate.
Yeah.
But person A knows that usually first weekend of the month, that's your on call.
They build
Their
I'm
shift.
sorry, they build it out at the beginning of the month.
Okay.
So they know in advance, hey, for the first week of this month,
Mhm.
I'm the on-call the whole week plus the weekend.
Mhm.
And then starting the next week, okay, now it's this person, and goes down the list.
Okay.
I believe our fire marshal's office keeps a 3-month tally.
Okay.
So they plan it out so that the guys can plan for vacations and family things. But the on-call person has a radio and is supposed to be in between 30 and 45 minutes.
Okay. These 6, including you, Chief, but these 6 arson investigators are also TCOL certified?
So you cannot be TCOL, you cannot be an arson investigator
That's what I thought.
without at least your basic TCOL
Okay.
license. The on-shift fire investigators we have are our cause and origin investigators. They're 2 separate certifications.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's, if you look right here, it's actually labeled out. Cause and origin is one of the investigators, and then your arson is the one that is required for, you have to have your TCOL to be an arson investigator.
Makes sense. I guess the question that I had here, and it's more of obviously in pertaining to the fire investigation aspect of the job, because they're needing to come in. Obviously, like you said, I think the biggest caveat is reasonable time. Reasonable time in an emergency, as I think we all know, isn't 4 hours or when I get there. It's how fast can I kick the tires and light the fires.
So for our arson investigators, like Chief outlined,
Mhm.
they have to be at the scene
Mhm.
within 30 to 45 minutes
Good.
of receiving the call.
Good.
Whenever we respond to a fire,
Mhm.
once we get on scene and determine, like, if it's an actual big structure,
Mhm.
we make the call as we're still actively fighting the fire, so that once they get notified, they can be there in a reasonable time. Especially, we all know fires don't happen during the day. Most of the time don't happen in daytime. They usually happen at nighttime.
Mhm.
For the most part, the last couple ones we've had have been either at nighttime or early morning. So again, if you're asleep, you get the phone call, well, that gives you enough time to respond to the scene within the 30 to 45-minute time frame.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason we give them a 30 to 45 minute is so for legal purposes, if these guys suspect that fire is criminally set,
Sure.
they call an arson investigator. That engine has to maintain control of that scene until one of our arson investigators get there. Otherwise, they no longer have right of entry. So then it becomes a legal issue with, we have to request permission from the homeowner to gain entry. But during an emergency, once the fire truck shows up, the officer in charge has control of that scene until he chooses to relinquish it back to the property owner.
Makes sense.
So we make sure that which means if it takes 2 hours for our arson investigator to get there, that fire engine is there for 2 hours,
Correct.
which other calls happen within that time frame.
Sure. Thank you. Absolutely. It's not outlined in this part, and I don't know if it would necessarily be outlined in the same part when we talk about the overtime for fire investigators, but something for us to discuss as a whole for both an operation standpoint, but as it relates to those that hold the certification as well as timelines when we talk about weekends, when we talk about things. The one caveat that I would like to add to this potentially would be the selective holidays that these may be needed a little bit more as well, meaning 4th of July, New Year's, those are always issues and times for fire investigations as well as the fire marshal's office. I know that that's a whole aspect of it, and whether that's more on the operational side, if anything, I wouldn't want to leave the table without adding to the point, because if those do fall on a weekend, or if they fall on a Friday, or if they fall on a Thursday, those are major work hours, not only for the fire department as a whole, but for those fire marshal and even the arson investigators, everybody that holds the certifications that would be brought in for confiscation, for writing citations, and all of the above. And when I was going through this and writing, I thought that it was a appropriate compensation initially, not gift, not reward, but compensation for those investigators, because you're right. Like, if you are on call and you are limiting that aspect, it makes sense. The only thing that I would add to it that we don't ever really have down on paper, that I will tell you, I know that y'all have dealt with headaches probably throughout the years, as well as us trying to mitigate problems for the entire public and public safety around those timelines, around those holiday times, is putting this in here as well, of us looking at those specific times when we know we're going to have to bring people in, when we know that those are going to be working hours for those people. So as we look through that, again, from Chief and myself, we will discuss that with each other from an administration standpoint. But when it comes to all of these conversations in relation with the union, I didn't want to forego adding that item on there as well, because I think it outlines it for regular overtime and weekends that they know that they're going to be on call, but for us to also add the times of those holidays, whether it's a 12-hour period, 24-hour period, we'll leave that through the details, but I did want us to look at that as well, because I know it's an aspect of that part of the fire department. The other questions that I had are a few housekeeping items when it comes to the instructor pay, page 8 through 13, and then the officer certification pay, pages 22 through 26. My question, again, without the assumption, is those levels of certification pay are non-compounded, correct?
No.
Okay.
So if you have instructor 3, you strictly get paid for instructor 3. You don't get paid for all 3 of them.
Thank you.
Just whichever level you are. Same for officer. If you're officer 4, you don't get.
For sure.
Just get the one.
Again, like, I was pretty sure, don't want to assume, make sure that we just kind of outline that stuff.
So, currently, right now, the certifications we do have that have multiple levels, they're not compounded either.
Okay.
So none of our certifications, even for the ones that we're asking, to be added.
Sure.
Will be compounded.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The few items that we have, questions from our standpoint are really having to do in the reporting, as it pertains to the employees and those certifications. I know that you also did more homework and you brought another list today.
It's actually written in there.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Absolutely. What Chief Merriman pointed out was that the certification pay shall not be cumulative. It should not be compounded, and that is written out in the CBA for anyone to make that for their own notes. But y'all did come today with the outline of all the certifications, including the ones that you are looking to add, and which firefighters, which engineers, which captains, as well as your brass fit those, and they're outlined in here, along with the total cost of each of those per person, per shift, it looks like, as well as the department as a whole, both in a monthly total as well as a yearly total. And so we will put that, and I will submit it in to all the documentation and the paperwork that we have for this. Full disclosure, it was something that I was having our human resources work out already. She has given me preliminary reports of who's got what certifications, and what that means for even when we look at scheduling. Finance has done really well at giving me certification of who's receiving what when it comes to arson investigators all the way to bilingual pay. And so all of those, whereas they are important and useful, they've put those together for me. And so what we will do is we'll double, triple check. It's all the same numbers. It's all from the same system. So I don't anticipate there to be any discrepancies. But I wanted to outline, again, for the record, what y'all submitted today is all certifications, including the ones you're looking to add on here, and then what the economic impact will be, both monthly, yearly, and per person. And so obviously, if there's changes in staffing, some of that can change, but overall what we're looking at is what it would cost to operate as we see currently into the next 365 days.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We outlined those items. I did talk about the aspect of non-compounded. Chief, did you have something? I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, okay. I wanted to talk about the only other aspect that I really had that was a bit of a question for me, and again, I have some description, but I'd like y'all to have time for elaboration. Is the you wanting to raise the boot allowance, and we talked about that because y'all, it's 2025, and to find a good pair of boots for $50 is an impossibility. And so obviously we know and respect and understand that y'all are as good as the equipment that you have, and if you have boots that have duct tape wrapped around them when you walk into a burning fire, it's not going to work. And so the idea of using better equipment, we elaborated a little bit last time on the leftover boot money and the use of that being rolled back into uniforms, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you will, kind of talk to me a little bit about that in depth.
Sure. So currently, right now, we are allotted $125 for a boot allowance, which means when a member goes out and buys a pair of their work boots that we wear when we're not fighting fire, just work around the station, running everyday calls, depending on what they spend, they will only be reimbursed $125. Currently, right now, to get a good pair of boots, you're looking at spending anywhere over $200.
Sure.
Just to give you perspective, the boots that I wear cost $250. So this allowance would reimburse me $200, so I'm only paying $50 out of pocket.
Sure.
What we're wanting to do is after 6 months, is if no member elects to buy boots after a 6-month time period, we take the remaining balance of the allotted boot allowance and supply it back to our uniform budget, which in turns could supplement, hey, we want to buy extra hats. I mean, it's summertime. Or we want to, wintertime's coming up and we hired some more people, but
As
our
long as you
budget,
didn't tell me you're not gonna wear shorts.
no.
Joking.
Chief's already made that clear. Or wintertime, hey, we hired new members, it's wintertime, we need to get them jackets.
Sure.
Or currently, right now, we had to replace all of our safety vests because a lot of us had these safety vests for years, and after years of washing, they no longer reflect. Or the reflective material has
Sure.
deteriorated. Looking at also our tact vests. Again, never thought in my years in the fire service we would be wearing tactical vests for certain calls, but we are. We're currently, the ones that we have, I want to say have a 5-year lifespan, and they are coming up on that 5 years. And to outfit every member of the department, that's going to take a big hit.
Now, all the
Out of
items that
our-
you discussed come out of the uniform budget?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just making sure.
And I will elaborate. 4 years ago, we used to keep, so for my entire time in this department, we kept one vest per seat on each vehicle, and we replaced those probably every 6 months. 4 years ago, we bought every individual firefighter a safety vest, and they lasted 4 years. So, but it was time to replace them. And so what he was explaining about so if we buy all of our personnel, what we do is you take, every personnel is entitled to $125 for boots. There's 30, we'll say there's 36 of us, that's $4,500. So out of the uniform budget, we earmark $4,500, and it doesn't do anything. Our quartermaster can't use it. It has to stay there
Sure.
until, and some people may never buy a pair of boots for that year. So they want to say from October to March, the first 6 months, if you don't use your boot allowance within the first 6 months, you'll have to wait till the next year.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously it depends on the calls that you make, it depends on the nature of the year, but you wouldn't necessarily have to replace boots every year. And the intent behind that would be then to use the money that you would have for boots for a different item of your uniform.
Yes, sir. If you buy
I hate to simplify it to that, but it's, like, my boots are good, but I need better safety equipment because we're going into hurricane season. We're going to be out in the middle of the streets with the big saws cutting down trees at 3 a.m. I want to make sure people see me before they hit me.
if you buy a good pair of boots and you take care of them and maintain them, they can last you a year to 2 years.
Okay.
If right now you go to Academy and buy you a $90 pair of boots,
Sure.
because that's only what your boot allowance allows.
Sure.
Well, in 6 months you're going to have to replace them because your soles are coming off. They're scuffed up to no end. So this allows you to go and buy that good pair of boots.
These are the same boots that you train in.
Yes.
Yeah. These are, yeah.
So the thing is, like, depending on the boots you get, like my boots are a little bit more expensive, but they last me longer. Right?
Sure.
I used to buy like the $225 pair of boots, and I would get 6 months out of them. Now I spend a little bit more, but they last me about a year. But it's all call dependent, right?
Sure.
If we're out in the freeway in the heat, getting them soaking wet through ditches, on roofs, it all depends on the call volume for
Sure.
that year. But if you get it covered in gasoline or something for some reason, obviously we're not going to be wearing those boots anymore.
Yeah.
So
Might make your arson canine
really matters.
trigger. Yeah. I appreciate you articulating that. That's what I was trying to get at. Like I remember you had talked about for it to roll back over in the uniform. Again, we were setting ground rules. We were kind of talking at things at a very high level. But I wanted to, again, for the record, talk about what that meant. That doesn't mean that money rolls back or that money is just re-articulated for a different piece of the uniform. Okay. Were there any questions as it stands from the union, or any items that we need to talk about as of now, or any things that we wanted to add where we currently sit? I open the floor to y'all, to Chief Merriman, to Mayor Bell as well.
Jay, I think we're moving right along. I think, again, for me, the biggest piece of this is the idea of a shift change and a schedule change. I don't think, again, as I said last meeting, I don't think that the fire department the fire union has brought to us any request out of the ordinary. When you think in terms of cost of living increases and merit-based, achievement-based incentive pay, I think those are two reasonable items in this climate, in this economic climate. So the biggest piece for me is the scheduling piece. It appears as though it will definitely be beneficial to the rank and file members of our fire department. So I think that we need to do our due diligence on that. But let me ask you this, and this could be for Chief Merriman, this could be for any members of the collective bargaining union. There was a time 5 years ago or so when we did not have a lot of promotions because there were not a lot of opportunities. There weren't enough captains, there weren't enough engineers, didn't necessarily have a deputy chief. I don't know how long ago it's been when we added the deputy chief, but this is a recent and new development. And so I'm interested in the process of promotion. How are we, as a governmental entity, promoting our engineers and our officers? Because if something were to happen, guaranteed, one of the first places that they look at is training and your qualifications to do what it is that you were doing in an emergency situation that precipitated whatever legal action or whatever liable issue that we may have. So, said all that to say, I'm interested, JB, in making sure that our promotional process is clear, that it's outlined, that it is comparable to the promotional opportunities and procedures in other departments, so that we can further strengthen our stance as it relates to strengthening ourselves against any potential liability. So whatever that process is, I'd like to see it. I'd like for you to see it, JB, and I'd like for us to make sure that we as a entity, as a governmental entity, are comfortable with the process, and to make sure that Gus, as our city attorney, is comfortable in defending that process. So I'll stop there, and we don't necessarily have to answer that right now, but I do want to make sure that process is on paper, that Gus has signed off on it, and that you, JB, as the manager, feel comfortable with it.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sir. Some more work on.
So, I just wanted to bring something up on the 4896. So, if we were to move over to 4896, we wanted to request for a possible trial period to get all of our ducks in a row starting in August. So that way, if it went through October 1st, we would have everything squared away and ready to go for October 1st when we sign, if.
We'll look at I mean, obviously I understand the request. One of the things that we'd have to look at is the confines of the budget for FY '25 as it
Absolutely.
currently sits, and where we would get in about those 60 days, if it could work. There's a few things that I think affect that, right? Like the budget as it currently stands and where this lies, but I don't think that that's an outlandish request. One of the things to look at is you always want to prepare for the mission before it actually, you get thrown out of the plane. And so with that is, we'll look at the budget, if there's any constraints, and see if we can't, see if there's any feasibility to that given the economic impact and the rest of negotiations. But obviously I understand, like, if that passes what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes, sir.
One thing I would like to do is, since we have everybody here, we go ahead and pick a date and time for next
Sure.
meeting.
Give me one quick, unless there was anything else economic or non-economic that we wanted to add to, or anything else for today? No, I think we got
Chief?
homework that on both sides to do. Chief Merriman and I will compile the few things, as well as the additions that the mayor added to these aspects that he just mentioned. But if there's any other aspect of the negotiations, then yes, 5.2 on our agenda is setting a date and time for our next meeting. And so I am fully committed to making that happen. Two weeks? Which one?
I think we had seen if we could do either 9, 10, or 16th or 17th.
Of June?
Yes.
Okay. 16 or 17 looks feasibly better. Due to no? What about the 16th? Monday. It's not a council day. The 9th is a council day. And I'll ask for a little bit of leniency. I'm committed to the 16th if we can make that happen. Mayor, does June 16th work for your schedule as it sees?
Is that good for you, Chief?
How's this 11 o'clock hour?
JB,
Yes, sir.
are you talking about next meeting?
I'm talking about the next meeting for Fire CBA being June 16th is a Monday.
Okay. What time?
Do we want to do 11 or we want to do 10?
11 o'clock, sir.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. We have a date and time. Perfect. If there's no other items, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Chief, that's you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Second?
I'll second it.
Awesome. Thank you all, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you for your commitment to the city, as well as our fire department and all the residents that call our place home. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you.